We think that we can do everything with time management. But the main point over here is not to do everything, but to do things in a way that we can actually make the most out of our results. And this is also something I have learned from the book Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdul, which I have reviewed and you can see it over here. From that book, I have learned about the tools and frameworks that actually will allow you to do your work in a way that you will feel good about it. Whole point is you will go crazy if you work 24 hours every single day of that week. However, we don't want that. We want to work in a way that will allow us to have fun, that will allow us to take the proper actions, and to achieve those accomplishments at the end of those work. How can we do that? This is something I have learned during my undergrad studies while I was a full-time student, doing volunteering side by side and also running this YouTube channel and a part-time worker, but also making sure that I was having enough amount of fun during my student life. So in this video, I'm gonna uphold the strategies that I have followed myself, tested on myself and got the results, and I'm gonna share those with you so that you can do all those kind of extracurricular activities, have fun at the same time while being a full-time student. When I say that, you don't have to do everything, but do in a way that will allow you to maximize your results. At this point, I'm talking about the Pareto principle, or also known as the 80-20 principle. I know some of you might have heard about it and some of you have applied this. Most of us don't know how to properly apply this as a student because the Pareto principle comes from Italy and basically it has been used in macroeconomics, particularly in business, in investments, in making wealth, etc. However, what I think is that it can be used quite practically in studies too if you understand the principle quite properly. And one thing to clarify over here is that it is not always 80%, 20%, it can be anything, any number. So this principle was basically used in Italy, where Pareto found that 80% of the wealth comes from 20% of the wealth makers. Basically, it's not 50-50, but majority of the time it seems to be a bit in an imbalanced number. So what is this term? So this term means that 80% of the results of an event comes out from 20% of the actions done on that event. So let's say if you have a chapter in your book and you are studying that chapter, and while going through the questions materials of that chapter, you see that majority of the questions comes from very specific topics of that chapter, not from the whole chapter, okay, from those very specific and important topics in the chapter. It means you put much more focus on those topics. Over here, it means 20% of the input. When you go through those important topics of that chapter, you can easily answer majority of the questions related to that chapter, and over here it is 80% of the results. So that's the total example of 80-20 principle. However, it doesn't mean that you will be avoiding all those topics and just study the important ones. It means that you will put a bit more pressure on the important topics so that you can answer majority of the questions related to that chapter. So basically you are gaining some results over there. So this is the example of 80-20 principle, and you can apply this in your student life too. And that is something I have always tried during my undergrad studies, because we had to go through lots of articles during our thesis time, during assignments. And sometimes what I used to do is that I went through some of the articles abstract. Within 5 to 10 minutes, I read the abstract and I identify whether I need this paper or not. If not, I would totally cancel that Chrome tab literally from my computer. Other than that, if I feel like I can get some 2 or 3 lines from this specific article, I would literally just copy and paste those 2 or 3 lines from that article, get the article reference, and boom, I would just cancel that paper. So that is how I usually try the 80-20 principle, and there are multiple examples of it. This is the recent example that comes up in my mind. We know that how we can actually plan our things. We don't have to put our energy on all of the things equally. Sometimes have to prioritize something on top of something else. If you could stop for a moment on this part, I want to say something very important. And trust me, this video doesn't contain every time management strategies out there. So why do you have to miss out on the most important time management strategies? And that's why I have made this ebook for you. Master Your Time, Real-Time Strategies for Students and Professionals. I'm gonna put the link below. You can buy it from there. Trust me, it's gonna be cheap, and it is not created by AI, and you will get the results inshallah for sure. And if you really like that ebook after applying those techniques in your life, then please make sure you are leaving a positive or any kind of reviews you like under that link. So now we will head on to the rest of the video. Now here comes the first point, which is start simple. Trust me, never ever when you start something new, don't try something fancy or don't try something overly complicated. For example, people people these days or students these days, when they see these videos or photos coming up in social media and seeing how everyone's romanticizing kind of their iPads, their computers, and they try to do it themselves. But when it doesn't work out, they literally feel demotivated and ultimately they don't really work toward it. I guess you can find it familiar because this happens to me a lot, and this has happened to me during my student life. I used to see these things where people are studying in a fancy way, and then when I try to do those, it literally doesn't work for me, and then I feel mentally drained. Start something with very simple. Then you can slowly, gradually increase yourself, increase your level. Complicated softwares like Notion or like Obsidian. So when you try to start something, always try to reduce the friction of it, because when you reduce the friction, there is a highly likely chance that you will continue that task, you will start that task in a quite motivated way, and there is a chance to complete that task in a proper way. When you are adding overly complicated structures which doesn't work for you at the very first of the task, that means you are adding friction over there that will reduce your chance of finishing that task or even starting that task. Start with as easy tools as you can. For example, say you have your notes app, your reminders app, your calendar app in your phone. Just simply start with them, something that doesn't need the internet. Then slowly you can gradually, when you understand yourself, you can literally skip to the complicated one or the fancy softwares. So as you now know what to use for planning, now it's time to go forward with some more important points. And the next one is to note the current issues. And the technique is really helpful, and this is something what I usually think to do when a new year comes. When I really learned about that thing, that technique from the book Feel Good Productivity, I was like, I should do it. And there is why you should do it too. Because otherwise, whatever you want to do, your weekly work, your daily task, you are gonna somewhere get lost in the midway if you are not doing this point. And this will not only allow you to progress in your task, but will constantly remind you what you have decided to do this specific year. That is something you need to do, to note the current issues you have. You want to develop some skills of yours this year. As a result, you are working on them. So when you visit the current issues every single week or every single month of yours, at that moment you can understand at what point of that task you are. What you have to do over here is that if you really a physical notebook person or pen and paper person, 2 columns in that paper. And if you are a kind of person who wants to be digitalized and uses digital softwares like Notion, I use that too, but I'm also a physical notebook person, then you can do that over there too. And I will also share the Notion template that I'm currently using that is pretty much good, and I have just downloaded it simply, and I have created my active list over there. So my active list, what you have to do is that whatever you want to do in the upcoming months, or at least within the half of the year, you have to write it down. So for example, I have written down that I want to learn the Python language, I want to invest in some kind of apps, let's say in some kind of companies, and then I want to make more YouTube videos, I want to upgrade my skills, I want to learn Arabic. All of those things are in my active lists right now. So I have written them on my active list side, and then on the other side will be the passive list, which is something you have to write which you want to do somewhere in your life within 5 to 10 years from now on. For example, I want to do Hajj, inshallah, let's say that's in my passive list. Then I want to write a book, that's on my passive list, inshallah. So those are the things that you don't want to do currently, but you want to do somewhere in your life. So what you are doing over here is like writing your current issue. Don't just leave it after writing. I want you to go in that thing or in that paper or in that Notion template where you have written your current issues. I want you to reflect on it. Like, how much have you learned the Python language? Let's say, how much have you invested? Are you even investing? How much YouTube videos have you made? So that's how you'll be reflecting. There is no point of making that column or making that active and passive list and never going back to it, because that's not going to work. So this is something you can also do while you are a full-time student, because while we are the phase of student, we want to do so many things. Okay, there are so many things going in our mind. Those who want to hustle a lot, this will help you to track your progress, how much you are doing, what you are doing, whether you are doing it or not. That actually allow me to understand which one I want to continue and which doesn't feel like continuing anymore. And that's how I manage my time in most of the cases. One crucial thing I want you to remember in this case is that while you are making your active list, don't write something which is unachievable. So don't write something which is unrealistic, which sounds really unrealistic. Let's say I am writing that I will do 50 volunteering events this year. Somewhere inside me, I also know that I really cannot manage to do 50 volunteering events this year because I have so many other commitments to do. So basically, don't overwhelm yourself with unrealistic things. The first thing is that you really cannot manage to do 50 volunteering events a year as a full-time student, as a part-time worker. You cannot really manage to do that. And this is something your gut feeling will tell you, trust me. Whenever you have that feeling and if you avoid that, at the end of the year, you're gonna be demotivated and you will never ever come back to this planning thing. Very important that you are putting achievable and measurable results, something you can achieve, something you can measure, and then write them on the active list. For example, if you write, I will try to do at least 2 to 3 events every month. It's gonna be a bit tough, but I guess I can manage. Now, the next point is for those types of people who easily gets distracted while doing their task. If you're that kind of person, then obviously this will work for you, inshallah. And even if not, this is gonna help you because this is something that is everyone's favorite and has been mentioned in the book Getting Things Done by David L. So this method is called the CORE method, CORE with a double C. The CORE method, the first C stands for capture. Now, what do you have to capture? You have to capture all those ideas, thoughts you are getting in the shower room while you are waiting for the bus, while you're buying some groceries, etc. So we do get these kind of thoughts whenever we are doing something, let's say like randomly wandering our mind somewhere else, or even doing some active work. We do get some kind of ideas. So before those idea gets vanishes in your brain, you have to write it down somewhere. Now, where can you write down? If you have a pocket notebook, do that. If you have a physical notebook with you, do that. If you have your phone with you all those time, we do have our phone all the time with us, you can use the reminder app, which I do. So in my reminder app, I have this section called the capture section. So basically, let's say I'm in the bus and suddenly I thought about that I need to tell my colleague that I want to do this volunteering event the next Saturday, and if I don't tell her, I will literally miss the opportunity and someone else will take my space. So basically what I will do is that I'll literally go to my reminder app, which doesn't need any kind of internet connection, and I will write, and then I will just set a timer when I want to tell her. Let's say I'm coming back from work at 5 p.m. and at 7 p.m. I want to send her this message. And as a result, I will just set an alarm for 7 p.m. Otherwise, I will never go back to my reminder app and will never be reminded of this thing that I thought of. So that's capture. The next thing is to clarify. It is to clarify yourself whether the task or the actions you are going to take are actually achievable or measurable. And I have to understand, I have to go through this decision making process, that if not, you can either delete that task, you can either save it for some other time, or you can delegate that task to someone else. Depends on the task you are choosing to do. The next thing is to organize your task. I mean, this is something every time management freak needs to do and understand. To organize your work means when you are going to do that work, how long you are going to do that work, how much prioritization that task is about to get. For example, if your task is about writing your thesis, or let's say revising your thesis before you hit that submit button, and then you have to do a new YouTube video shooting, let's say, you always have to decide, like, organize as based on prioritization. And over here, as what I can say is that my thesis revision gets the prioritization more, so that will be on top of my list. So that's how you have to organize your task. Otherwise, you will get like tangled in between all your tasks. The next thing is to reflect. So whenever you are organizing your task and whenever you are hitting those task deadlines, you try to reflect back, like what you have done. For example, last week I have done 5 hours of volunteering events, and when I go back to my reminder, or let's say my journal, which I use the Stoic app right now for my journaling. So when I go back to my previous times, I'm like, damn, I have done some very good things, and that actually allow me to reflect, track my progress, and also motivates me to do more. The last point is to engage. So this is something I have already mentioned, that when you are engaging with your task, that means you are completely reflecting and progressing on your task. You are ticking that box when you are done with that task. You are shading it half when you have half done that task. This will give you satisfaction. This will give you a sense of accomplishment, which will furthermore push you to do actually a bit more of your task. This point is for those kind of students who always think for longer term goals. I am that kind of person. So basically, when I was doing my studies and also side by side I was doing my volunteerings, I was thinking at least 2 to 3 years ahead of that time. So basically longer term goals. And this is the specific kind of strategy that should work for you. And this is called the RPM method, or rapid planning method, or also known as the result, purpose, and massive action plan. So the RPM method. Whenever you are planning to do something, you always have to think the longer term goals it's gonna serve you. For example, let's say if I'm trying to learn the Python language, this is not something that came nowhere in my mind. I was seeing some posts regarding it and the way the AI is taking over the world and making people's work a bit much more easier. I was like, I should learn something regarding this. Could be using as a side hustle or something. So because right now I know how to use HTML and CSS a bit. I keep forgetting about it, but I know. So I was like, yeah, I should go for Python. So basically I have heard a lot about Python. So I was like, yeah, the longer kind of goals that I had on my mind was like, it is somehow gonna pay me. I could use it as a side hustle. I could participate in training the AI, might be with the Python language. I know there is much more programming languages out there, but let's just start with Python. Thinking about all of these things while I started to think that I should learn Python. So that is your purpose. You want to achieve that result somewhere in your life, and that is the purpose of you taking that action. Everything you choose in your life to do, you have to always understand the purpose behind it. Like everything should have a purpose. If I'm going to play with my friends today, let's say, the purpose behind it will be the memories I'm making with them, which I'm gonna see somewhere after 20 or 30 years. I'm like, oh damn, those were the time. So basically always there is some kind of purpose in whatever you choose, otherwise it will literally go off from your mind. Okay, how you can use the RPM method. So first of all, what you have to do is that gather all the tasks you need to do. Okay, I'm gonna do it with you, let's say. Okay, for me the tasks will be finishing the assignments, writing the new video script, buy a new book from Waterstones, go to the gym, call my relatives, write the newsletter, edit the reels, choose new volunteering events to do, etc. Now what you have to do is that divide them based on the commonalities. Now commonalities means what I have done over here. Let me show you. For the assignments, let's say I will put it into the study category. For the new volunteering events, I will put that in the extracurricular. Calling relatives and go to the gym is something I can do together, so I'll put them in the health category. Then new video script, newsletter editing, and new book buying is something I'll put in the hobbies category. Now if you want to take any kind of paper or any kind of software and make 3 columns for me, the 3 columns would be one for the task, one for the result, and the other one for the purpose of doing it. Now you know how to do it. On one side you write the task. For example, the task is new video script. The category falls into, let's say, what was the category? It was, let's say, hobbies. Now the purpose behind it is that I want to monetize my channel, I want to grow more audiences, I want to teach people what I have learned myself. So when your purpose is clear, you are getting more chance of doing that action. Trust me, somewhere in your mind your purpose would be running, and that will push you to do that task. And that is something we want during our student life while we are building something extra side by side with our studies. And this is something similar to the core method, to be honest, but the core method is a bit more broader and has few more options. But the RPM one is something I would actually like to do because this covers everything: my results, my task, and the purpose behind it. So this is pretty much very simple. I would really urge you to do this if you are starting from the very scratch. This point is for those kind of people who always seems to set unrealistic dreams. It is not your fault. I know you want to achieve so many things in your life. You can count me in. You always have to make sure that you are doing smart and following smart. By following smart, I mean follow the smart technique. Now how you can do that? What is the smart technique? Now this is something you don't need to include in your weekly or daily life, but instead it is kind of an overall planning. It comes under that. Yes, you can go through it again and again. To what I have said earlier is like to reflect on your task. Now the smart technique, the S stands for being specific. Now you have to be very specific about your task. If I say that I will learn a programming language, I mean there are so many kind of programming language. What am I talking about? Which one do I want to learn? So you have to be very specific. You have to choose your options, like which one do you want to start with. So I'm like, okay, let me start with HTML. That's the basic one. I will learn HTML programming language. Here you have a very specific goal. Rather than saying you will learn a programming language, you are choosing, you have done some research and you chose that you are going to start with HTML. Now the next point, which is measurable. So you have to choose a task that you can measure. So for example, you are saying that I'm gonna learn the HTML language twice a week. So let's say I'm gonna learn it on Saturday and Sunday. So here you know how you are measuring your task. You have a specific thing, specific days where you are going to learn this task. Okay, so that's measurable. You are able to measure what you are doing. The next one is achievable, something you can achieve. Okay, so you cannot say that I'm gonna finish learning HTML within this week. Somewhere your inner self will tell you that no, you are not gonna do it. So don't you dare say that. So let's say I'm gonna complete 50 minutes of HTML within these 2 days, okay, Saturday and Sunday. So basically over here you're being specific, you can measure, and also you are making it achievable. Okay, 50 minutes you can cover it within 2 days. 25 minutes you can divide. The next point would be relevant. So you can say that I'm gonna learn this specific language so that I can actually start making at least the basic website or basic look of the website. That sounds really relevant, and you can actually help other people through the HTML and then slowly learn more languages. You have to start from the very basic. That's how you're making your tasks relevant to yourself. And the last one is to be timely. As you are starting some task, you want it to end at some point, right? So let's say you will be telling yourself that within 2 months or within 2 to 3 months, I'm gonna finish learning the HTML programming language. So over here, you are setting the limit. When there is a limit, you will try to be as competitive to yourself to finish that task by that time limit. If there is no time limit, you will constantly doing that or might even leave that task in the midst way. Okay, so that's the importance of smart technique, and yes, you can really use that while you are starting to do some kind of task. All right, so the last point of this video, this is the point which if you don't follow all of the techniques that you have chosen is gonna fail. So this is something which I have talked previously in my videos. If you want to see that video, it will be linked over here, and that is to avoid multitasking and distraction. Now I know lots of people, like all of them, majority of them, talks about avoiding multitasking, avoiding distraction. This is gonna do you that, this is gonna do you that. Really few people talks about how to do that and to mention the ways that actually works for you. So what I meant by avoiding distraction, the first and foremost distraction we have is our phone, our Apple watches and everything. Don't use your phone while you are doing something. How you can do that? You can put your phone away from your side, somewhere you cannot reach out or somewhere you cannot see. For example, if I'm studying right now over here, I'm gonna put my phone somewhere in behind in my bed. I guess I'm producing some kind of friction over here. I know I'm talking about reducing the friction. Over here, I want you to produce the friction. What friction are you producing? If I want to use the phone, let's say I'm getting this urge of using my phone. My phone is literally 5 to 6 steps away from me right now. Do I really want to get off my chair? Nah. So I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna focus on what I'm doing. That's the friction. Taking that 5 to 6 steps from here to my bed to get my phone is the friction. So you have to add your friction over here. You have to put it away from your side so that you don't get that craving of doing that action or multitasking. For those kind of people who really involves in multitasking are the people who actually cannot avoid, are the kind of people who actually lack focus. One common thing is to do the Pomodoro technique. I know for some people Pomodoro doesn't work. Let's say don't use the word Pomodoro over here. Let's use the word timer. So set a timer of 20 to 25 minutes for yourself. And what you're going to tell yourself is that sit straight and do that task for just 25 minutes. Trust me, after 25 minutes, you're gonna get 5 minutes of break. Do that for a couple of months or a couple of weeks, and then slowly increase the timer. I slowly increased the timer to literally 1 hour. I was able to focus and sit in one place and do my task for literally 1 hour and more sometimes. If you are allergic to this term Pomodoro, then let's just use the word timer. It's literally the same thing. To increase your focus to do that task for specific amount of time. Do nothing else in between. One more thing you can do to increase your focus and to keep doing what you are doing is to do that thing during night time. It's like 7 or 8 p.m. unless you're in the UK where the sun is still out at 7 and 8 p.m. at this season. The time the night comes, what you can do is that you can turn off the lights of your room, and then the place you're going to study have a small like table lamp or something, and then turn that table lamp on. So what you are having in that environment is that your whole room is pitch black, but the place you are studying has a small amount of light. That will allow you to focus your brain just for that space. This works for lots of people. It works for me too. Don't look in your room because you're gonna fall asleep, but just look into the place because your brain will literally focus on that place. That one has the light. It will capture your focus. So yes, try to do that if you are lacking focus or something. That's all for today's video. I really hope you have found some really interesting and effective points from this video. If that's true, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and also hit the thumbs up button and share this with your friends. Other than that, if you want to watch other videos of my channel, then you can watch two videos. One is the research tools that you can use during your undergrad or postgrad or PhD time. You can use these very important tools, and also one of my weekend blogs. Other than that, please don't forget to get that ebook because you'll be missing out some very important time management strategies. Go ahead and buy that one, and please don't forget to leave a review under that, and also don't forget to sign up to my newsletter. That's all for today. I will see you inshallah in the next video. Till then, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum.